This is Just Listen, hosted by George Goodman. Today is June 22nd, 2026. Welcome to the podcast. I hope that everyone had a great Father's Day. I know that I did. So let's go ahead and jump in. U.S. federal government policy on rising murder rates, attacking politicians, and event safety. Now, why is this important to you? The bottom line here is that the United States, and more specifically, taxpayers, help pay for security in these three areas. A lot of times, just to kind of be out front with it, politicians can ask for more protection. All they had to do is basically file like a voucher of the people that they need, etc. Events too. You would think that events, huge events, because we just had one in New York, they would have to pay for that, or the team. Nope, there's a cost share. So recent federal policy prioritizes centralized hardline law enforcement and aggressive counterterrorism measures over violence prevention programs, which we know and has been that way in the past. What I'm saying is, I'm bringing it to your attention that it has hugely increased. So the administration has shifted focus toward targeted federal arrests, increased border operations, and enhanced protection for federal officials while simultaneously uh, um, looking at other areas. And I didn't say what else they were doing because that was more political, and so I'm not going to talk about it. They were talking about cutting programs and intervention grants, stuff like that. Okay. Driven by an unprecedented surge in political violence and escalating threats. Okay, so the U.S. Capitol Police budget is on track to cross the $1 billion threshold. $1 billion for the first time in history. Now, look at federal campaign committees and government bodies have aggressively scaled up their safety expenditures in response to high profile attacks. Expenditures result in taxpayer dollars to protect these guys. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be protected. I'm saying that it has really gotten out of hand with the number of security attacks. All right, congressional and institutional protection. Capitol Police already said that they were spending almost $1 billion. Member security initiatives. In fiscal year 2026, the legislative branch appropriation bill includes an additional 203.5 million dedicated solely to enhance member security initiatives, right? So that's this fiscal year. Personal security. Following targeted violence against politicians, House leadership doubled the personal safety allowance for lawmakers, permitting members to spend up to $20,000 per month to cover personal security costs when outside of Washington, D.C. I didn't even know that they got a security allowance. It's $20,000 a month potentially. Secret Service funding, we can expect that. Secret Service received a massive 1.7 billion allocation under recent budget reconciliation measures. This includes a controversial 351.6 million recently approved by the Office of Management Budget, the White House security measures, and hardening drone-proof structures for large-scale events. Okay, but we were expecting that. But the point still is it has gone up significantly. And not to keep saying it, but these are taxpayer dollars. Judicial and executive protection. The White House requested an immediate 58 million emergency injection specifically to bolster protective details across the judicial and executive branches. Event mutual aid. Congress recently added $30 million to its mutual aid program, which directly reimburses law enforcement agencies to help secure federal lawmakers when they host public events at town halls in their home districts. Okay, so that's fair. People have to be protected from our own citizens and other people who are in the country. All right. So, campaign committee, private event security. Now, this one is interesting. While not direct taxpayer funding, federal policy changes allowing the use of official campaign funds for safety measures had led to explosive spending. So, with the campaign committees and private event security, they can use campaign funds, which is a huge shift. All right. How much has the spending on security from federal government on event safety, and do the event organizers help pay for the security? That's how I framed the question. So, federal government spending on event security has substantially increased due to rising domestic and international threat levels. Congress to regularly approve hundreds of millions of dollars in targeted security funding for high profile gatherings. Private and local event organizers frequently help pay for security, though their exact financial responsibility varies depending on what type of event it is and the security classification. So that puts you in the thought process of how much money we are spending. Nonprofit and religious gatherings. Congress regularly debates and funds the Homeland Security Nonprofit Security Grant Program, with recently supplemental expansion providing hundreds of millions of dollars to secure faith-based organizations and community events. You probably didn't know that. So Congress, and there's a pattern with Congress that the mainstream media doesn't talk about. People should be protected. That's not the issue. The issue is, especially with these events, okay, private donors who are doing the events should be paying more for security. They should not be counting on taxpayer dollars like they are, which would lead us to talk about what's the criteria to get government funding, and also why no one is really talking about it. All right. Now, since I've given you the flavor of that, I want to talk about global internal security spending profiles. This might surprise you. The United States spends on security $300 plus billion a year. Now, I'm going to say something that I want you to think about. China spends 200 billion. China has more people. So that would track to me that they would have to spend that kind of money. All right. So let's look at what they're spending it on. The United States devolved municipal policing, local crime deterrence, federal task forces, among other things, events, all of the stuff that I mentioned previously. China, mass digital surveillance, grid-style community policing, rapid paramilitary deployment. Remember though, China has over 1 billion people in the country. Now, in sharp contrast, so I just did the top 5. Now here is what's shocking. Russia spends $40 billion. Okay, remember, excluding China, the United States spends $300 billion on internal security in the United States. The next one is Germany. Germany spends $35 billion. So 300 million versus 35 and 40 billion dollars. That is the bottom line. Now, what can we do to stop it? That's not what this podcast is about. I just laid out that we have spent in the last 5 years, it's jumped from probably $80 million to 300 billion. And it was probably a little bit more. But my point is, we need to look at the people in the United States and maybe look at, and this is my opinion, changing minds through social media. One of the biggest problems that I see is that sometimes the mainstream media, and all of them do it, even the conservative ones, they put out information that just infuriates people. And as a result, at times, people are just acting out in record numbers. And if you're from the Middle East, it looks like that when they come over, and 95% of them, 98% of them are great because they come over here legally. But it's dangerous with putting out information. And also remember, countries export cyber attacks in the form of saying things randomly on the social media that aren't even true and are not vetted by anybody. So the violence has really spiked, and we're only 2 years into this president's term. I see it getting worse, and there's going to come a time where maybe 40% of the federal budget is spent on security. So let me know what you think. This is Just Listen, hosted by George Goodman. Have a great day.